Hello, and welcome to the FastForwardAmy show. The show where we talk about how you can lift your life and business with simple strategies. I'm FastForwardAmy, your host and coach, and I'll bring you a new episode every Tuesday. Today is a very special day because not only are we talking about a super interesting topic today, we're also celebrating the fact that this is the 50th episode of the FastForwardAmy show. And before we go into that, I have some exciting news about that. Because it is the 50th episode, we're kind of like starting a new era, and you can now find us in video as well on our YouTube account, amongst others. And that means that we're creating a sort of fast forward TV where you can also see most of our podcast episodes, and we also have some other stuff rolling out there. So if you're listening to me right now, it means that from now on you can also go and see or look at me on YouTube. Just go to my FastForwardAmy account and find us on Fast Forward TV. Okay. Well, today we're talking about something that is a little bit uncomfortable for me personally, but for me as a business coach and, just like business owner, FastForwardAmy, it's not weird. I do have to say, me personally, I wouldn't share this so soon. What happened is a few weeks ago, or a few months ago actually, we closed a $1 million launch. And today I want to share with you how we did that and close a $1 million launch without using any paid ads. So this is quite exciting. I know this is going to be a hit. Obviously, I can't tell you the entire step-by-step behind the scenes. I'm sharing that with my coaching students in my Business Freedom Elevator. But with you, I'm going to share the most important steps. At least the steps I think were the biggest reasons for our success. Okay, when you do this on video, it's actually funny because you have to pay attention to how you act a lot more. One of the first things we did is people joke. People are like, oh, well, I also want to sell some courses. My brother said something. I know a lot of people in my environment right now, they're like, oh, well, I kind of want what you have. Let me also go and make a ton of money. Obviously, this didn't happen overnight. That's the first bubble I want to break. I've been working on this for years. And you might have a day where 100,000 or 200,000 euros comes in one day, but it isn't really in one day. It happens over time, and I've been working on my brand and everything over years. The first thing I did is my own brand, my personal brand, is a standard for quality. Now what happened is I came up with the name FastForwardAmy together with my then boyfriend many years ago, back when I was a fitness coach actually. So I started my brand offline and online as FastForwardAmy, and I always focused a lot on education, quality, and excellence. So over time, my name kind of got recognized as a valuable brand. And then over 2 years ago, I started with my Business Freedom Mastermind, where I was coaching multiple entrepreneurs at the same time so that they would connect with each other and I could teach them how to build up their brand and scale their business. So my own name, FastForwardAmy, became recognized as a famous brand, and then I built something that I kept using, namely my Business Freedom Mastermind. I started with 4 clients, and then I had 9 clients, and then I had 17 clients, and then I had 30 clients. And every round, those 4 people talked to other people. Then those 9 people talked to other people. Then those 17 people talked to other people. And you noticed some tipping points. And after a while, just the abbreviation, BFM, became known a lot, and it became my thing. And that is something really important, that brand recognition, which is my first step that I would give you for the $1 million launch, because a lot of people always switch and they do new things. But I would urge you to be like, okay, you had one thing that worked and you got people results or people were happy. It doesn't matter if you have products or services, and use that again, do that again, launch it again, because you'll learn from every launch. And by the time I was at my 4th launch, I had already planned that out before the previous one, like the registrations even ended, I think. And I just knew what worked and what didn't work and how to act if I needed to kind of change some things. Every launch I tested new things. Now, that has nothing to do with my $1 million launch, but also everything, because I built up that name. And at a certain point, I wanted to move away from the mastermind. I wanted to create something new, but that was based on the same framework, my business freedom framework. So I looked at it as the business freedom name, the business freedom framework. And I created a new name, and I went from going towards online business unlocked, online business accelerator, stuff like that. But it all sounded fairly hollow to me until I got to the point where I was like, business freedom elevator. And I asked some feedback from people, and almost no one liked it, but I really, really liked it. And sometimes you do have to go with your own gut, especially if you've already built a successful business and brand. So I went with that name, and I really purposefully tried to get people to the point that they recognize it as being the same quality of the BFM. So I kind of like used the BFM, the Business Freedom Mastermind name, in the Business Freedom Elevator name, and that brand was already recognized together with my own personal brand. That's the first thing I want to say that was really important. We didn't come up with something entirely new. We were just continuing what we were already doing. So we already had the trust from people because they knew that the previous people and clients who went through the program were satisfied. So they would be satisfied about this new program as well. The second thing we did is we were super transparent about everything. And that means I see a lot of people launching something and selling something. And they're like, something special, sneaky thing is coming up. And everyone's like, I don't give a f, because I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And what we did, which was wildly uncomfortable, as is this entire podcast episode, we were extremely transparent about everything. We were transparent about how much it was going to cost, how big the discount you were going to get, how big the discount was you were going to get when you first bought it in pre-order, when exactly it was releasing, the date, the time, everything, what it was and what it wasn't. I was very clear. I was like, I'm not going to hold your hand. This is a self-paced program with built-in accountability, all of that. That was uncomfortable, and we were afraid we were going to lose customers because of that. And it's kind of the same as people asking me like, hey, should I put my prices on my website or not? And I'm always like, in the end, it's up to you. But when you do communicate your prices clearly, this is what I see that happens. I think when you give people time, and when, for example, they know it's a 2,500 euro program, they have enough time to talk themselves into it and to come to terms with that price. And you also shift out the people who are definitely not going to buy it and who are looking for something that costs 100 euros. On top of that, by not communicating your prices, you also lose customers because they might think that it costs 20,000 euros. So I think being very upfront about the price from the beginning allowed us to normalize it, and then being very transparent about not only the price, but also about the amount of pre-orders we were going to allow for really helped. So what happened is we had 600 people on our wait list, and we had 100 people who were allowed to buy the pre-order. We screenshotted the wait list. We just sent it out in email. We're like, be fast on pre-order day because only 100 people can buy it. And I was like, I didn't really know how many people are going to buy. I was like, yeah, wait list is one thing, but you don't really know what happens in the heat of the moment itself. I was used to selling through sales calls, so it's a totally different thing when you're just like, hey, here's the link, buy. And what happened is we sold the first 50 spots in the first hour of our launch. And that was, a lot of people didn't even read the sales page. They were just like, I already knew what it cost. I already had my cards ready. I got photos from people who were like, I had 3 credit cards ready, my PayPal login info. They showed me photos where they had all of like the bank thingies just already on the table to look at what was going to work. It's very wild, by the way, to see something like that happening. And they just went straight to checkout. In the first 15 minutes, I think we sold like 20 spots or something. That was really crazy. And it was because people already knew what they were signing up for. And I felt very confident in what we're doing because I was like, I wasn't afraid that we're going to get the wrong clients. I just knew that I had already communicated, this is what it is, this is what it's not. And that felt really good. And often we are so afraid of communicating clearly because we're afraid we'll scare off people. Whereas it's actually, when you are very clear and transparent, you attract the right people. And you scare off the wrong people. So that's a very big tip. True excitement of this episode, I totally forgot to say, as this is episode 50, as usual, you can find all of the information on my website, fastforwardamy.com/50. If you're loving this episode, also don't forget to come and like screenshots or take a photo and share it on your Instagram and tag me, because lately I've noticed less people doing that, because you probably think I don't care. I do care a lot. It makes me really happy. My primarily love language is words of affirmation. It makes me really happy when you give me some affirmation. You might not know it, but I also don't know what I'm doing, so I really appreciate every share and shout out. Concerning the launch, by the way, I'll talk about it more at the end, but we've created a launch list, steps and decisions you need for your next launch or like big sales. And you can grab that through fastforwardamy.com/launch list, or just click the link in the description. Highly recommend you go and download that. It's both available in English as well as in Dutch, so go and grab it. You'll love it. It's some of my very best information and one of the best lead magnets I've ever created. So that's fastforwardamy.com/launch list. Okay, next up. So we already talked about brand recognition in every possible way, both for me as a brand as a whole, or my company, you know, I'm not alone, as well as the product itself, the sub-brands, really, really important. There was also a point, by the way, where I wanted to change the name of the mastermind itself. And I really loved this new name, but in the end I was like, I'm not going to do it because I'm going to lose so many clients because they're hooked on that name and that sub-brand. So we talked about brand recognition and about transparency. Transparency is very terrifying because you're like, oh, that means I need to make decisions and I can't go back on them. Remember, you can always go back on a decision. You can always change a name. You can always change a price. You can always change a date. I've done that too. No worries. And the next step was we used very clear different launch phases. We used 3 phases actually. I learned this from one of my mentors, Sabrina Philipp, and the launch phases were excite, educate, and close. And we tied in 3 different prices with those phases. So previously, I can't promise you, by the way, that the next time the prices are going to be the same, but previously the prices were 2,000 euros excluding VAT when you bought in pre-order, 2,297 euros when you bought in early bird, and 2,477 when you bought near the end at the normal price. It is priced at 3,000 euros, but it was the first time we were launching, so we did it like this. The total value of my program, by the way, is more than 10 times as much as I ask for it. I think that's a really good a way to do it, is always look at how can I give 10 times more value than the price that I'm asking for this. So we used excite, educate, and close. And primarily for us, that meant in the first phase, in the excite phase, we were really talking to the people that were already warm, that already wanted to buy from me because they were already convinced, they were already bummed they didn't join a program of mine sooner. There were so many people who were always saying like, I'll join the next round of the mastermind. And I was always like, well, but I don't really know if I'm going to do it the next time. Turns out I was right. I never lie. And they were very surprised about that. So what happened is the first phase, the excite phase, was only for the warm audience. I communicated solely to the people that I knew were already ready to buy, who were bummed that they didn't buy sooner, and they were already like, they convinced themselves that they were going to buy it. They didn't need a lot of information. They were just like, I'm ready to do this. I trust you fully. And that is where we put the pre-order in that excite phase. We just talked about it excitedly. I was super enthusiastic. I was like, here you can buy, but I didn't really do a lot of education or a lot of explanation about the program. A lot of info wasn't there yet even. I was just like, this is the pre-order and you're going to get a 500 euro discount. And they just bought. That was the first phase, the excite phase. Then we closed the doors. So we sold the pre-order and it sold out before the end date that we had put on the pre-order. So within a week, we sold 100 spots. We closed the doors and I left for a vacation. And on that vacation, it was also meant that I was still working a little bit due to many factors, amongst others, moving around my vacation so I could stay longer because my brothers were coming over, but also me having to work a little bit sooner. Long story short, while I was on vacation, I used the lifestyle on my vacation to portray the lifestyle people were going to get if they joined my program. And I hyped more, I excited more about the upcoming early bird launch and the start of the program. So the early bird launch was then the moment where we're like opening the doors. And a week after that, the actual program was going to start. And we say that that's the educate phase because leading up to that moment that we opened the doors we actually did a 4-day roadmap series, a 10K roadmap, to really educate people. And it means that, in that first phase, we attracted the people who were already warm. But in that second phase, we attracted the people who wanted to learn, but who didn't know yet if they could really trust me or learn from me. So I kind of the goal was to blow people away and to really give them new stuff that they hadn't thought about yet. And then at the end be like, hey, now if you want to know how to do this, get into the elevator program. Sometimes when other people do that, I do feel like they, how do I say this? They're full of shit and they are just only talking, hyping people up and never really give valuable information. So I do pay attention to the fact that I really give very valuable information. And then I'm like, if you want to take this further with me, come and join my program. Small note on that. For the first hour and a half of that early bird opening on that Thursday night, our shop didn't work. But that's a story for a different time on how we handled that. We had to change around a lot. And on that first night, I was really like, oh my God, we really screwed up this launch. But in the end, it was all fine because we still had the $1 million launch. So that educate phase was all about sharing valuable content and also educating more on the inside of the program for the people who were more like, but how does it work? So that's that. And then the last phase is the close phase. And that's where we handled a lot of objections. I went live a lot. I talked a lot about, is this right for me? What if I don't have money? What if I don't have time? And all of that stuff. So the close phase is where you really look at the urgency, like, hey, we're going to be closing the doors. The price is, we weren't talking about the price was going to go up. We're just talking about the fact, you won't have access to it anymore because it's a 6-month program. We're closing the doors. I think on the last day, we got almost 20% of our total sales. A lot of people are afraid of pushing it towards the end. And obviously a lot of people will hate me for it, but the people who wanted to buy, bought. So closing at the end, really handling the objections was really important. 3 different launch phases. Most people don't even use one phase or don't even think about it that way. So this might help. Speak to your warm audience first, speak to your colder audience. Secondly, to turn them into a warm audience. And in the end, just turn everyone who is an ideal client. A scalable product. My mastermind was already doing really well. And I already said it, but I went from 4 to 9 to 17 to 30 clients. But that was kind of my max. And the reason we came up with this other program is because first and foremost, I started to feel it in my mastermind that people actually needed 2 phases of the programs and not just 1 phase. So where a lot of people in their product suite will be like, here's all kinds of different programs. I like to work in steps. I used to think with 1 program, I wanted to get my clients everything and be like, you don't need me anymore. And they can do it without me. They don't need me anymore, but often they are just like, hey, I'm ready to learn even more. And I started realizing I can't teach people all they need in 4 months. So I decided to split it up, the program. And also because I felt that, I saw that there were 300 people on my waitlist for my mastermind back then. I was like, I can't do that. But also I was convinced that those people didn't need the mastermind. They needed a different type of program, and afterwards they might need a mastermind. It was really difficult for me to say goodbye to the mastermind, and I didn't say goodbye to it completely because I might bring it back as the level 2 of the business freedom steps. But I said goodbye to it for a while because I knew it wasn't what people needed, although they thought they did. And it felt uncomfortable because it was a program that did 120K in sales. I knew how to launch it completely. It didn't cost me any effort. I knew I was going to sell it out in 1 day. If I would have launched it, it wouldn't have costed me anything in effort. And it felt easy. And that's the problem. That's where the whole kill your darlings comes from. Because it felt easy, but at the same time, there were some things I wanted to do differently. But it felt like a lot of work. And that's when a friend of mine was like, you need to kill your darling. And you need to start scaling. And the scaling wasn't really for me, because for me, the best thing would have been to just do the same thing, because I was loving it and felt comfortable. But what my clients needed and what my potential clients needed was more. And that meant I had to create a product where I could reach more people, help more people, and really do that on a bigger scale. So my 4th step, or my 4th tip for $1 million launch, and what we did is We created an actual scalable product. My mastermind seemed scalable up until a certain level, and my plan beforehand was that I was going to do 2 rounds of it at the same time, 2 groups of 30 people. But I stepped away from it, and I revisited everything. I killed everything and started building something new from the ground up that was fully scalable. So for you, that might mean you make handmade products and you know you can only make 2 a day. That's not fully scalable. Maybe you can have other people help you. With products, usually they are inherently scalable, so that's great, unless you're like an artist with like hand-drawn paintings. Although great artists back in the day, like for example, I think it was Rubens, who was like from Antwerp. He had a lot of apprentices and he would do only the typical things that were like his style, and his apprentices would be creating a lot. So you can always scale up some, but with a service that's often difficult, and it's a challenge. Now, people are always like, oh, but my clients, they want to sit together with me and they want to meet in person and everything. Well, obviously, my clients would also prefer to meet me in person and come and sit next to me. But that wouldn't be me scaling, and that wouldn't be me making impact on tons more people. I kind of want to challenge you on this. If you're like, well, but clients want to see me. Yeah, surely. Everyone wants to see me too. But I have 375 clients in my Business Freedom Elevator. I can't see all of them at the same time. Also, I'm an introverted person and I don't want to be around people the entire time. When there's a screen, I feel a bit more comfortable. Sounds weird, I know. This doesn't mean I'm not a social person. Super social. A little bit too social at times. So what I want to say here is you don't have to look at this from the beginning. In the beginning, I would recommend you just focus on selling what you have and selling what you have to offer and go and sit next to your clients. But if you feel like you want to scale and you want to create new stuff and you want to impact more people, dare to say goodbye to the thing you were doing. That is the killing your darlings, and sometimes that means opening up opportunities to create a scalable product. And remember, the one thing doesn't exclude the other. This doesn't mean I still can't also host a group of 30 people, or I still can't work one-on-one with people. I still do that. Those are just higher level coaching programs I have. And the Business Freedom Elevator is very scalable, and I have support coaches there who help me. And it allowed me to go from 120K in revenue for 1 round to $1 million in revenue in 1 round. Did I know that was going to happen? No. Did I know it was possible? Yes. So, but it feels like the Holy Grail, because I can make impact on a lot of people, provide them with the very best information I have at a really good price, and shine in the stuff I'm good at, like host sessions where I talk to a lot of people at the same time. That's my zone of genius. Your zone of genius might be different, but really do look at that scalable product. There's a reason why you're not hitting higher revenue months or launches, because the capacity isn't there. So what I want to say is create a scalable product and create the container and the capacity to actually support that. I don't know if any of this made sense as I was explaining it. It feels very uncomfortable to talk about the behind the scenes to the same people who are actually in my program, but I think you can feel me. People who get coaching from me or get my programs, they know I care a lot. And the main decision maker for this scalable product was not me, because I wanted to do what I was doing. It was the fact that there was more need and I didn't have enough to offer. So I changed it and I created something scalable. From a business standpoint, if you would take the emotion out of it, it would be a great decision. But if you want to keep doing what you do and not scale, also fine. You're always the boss. You can always decide what you want to do. I have the best of both worlds now. The biggest reason we sold so much is because of one simple concept, namely the spotlight effect. The spotlight effect states that people need to hear or see something 8 to 10 times until they really register it. Now what happened is, throughout my launch, I kept going, I kept showing up, I kept talking about it, and other people will be like, oh, but I already talked about my offer once, or I already explained how it worked, and I kept doing it. I kept sharing reviews. I kept talking about what it was. I kept sharing the sales pitch. I kept talking about it in my podcast. I kept talking about it on video. I kept posting about it until people had heard it 8 to 10 times so that they could decide to join. Even up until the very last day, people were like, Well, can I do it if I have products? A question that I had already answered 50 times, and that was answered on the sales page, in the emails. I'd sent out emails, videos, everything. People were like, can I do it if I'm still a student? Like, objections, questions. What type of modules are they? Do you get a workbook sent home? Is it video modules? I was like, how can you not know this yet? Because in my head, it was super clear. But for other people, it wasn't. So I used the spotlight effect to my advantage, and I call it more like the highlight effect. I kept highlighting all of the features and all of the tools and all of the benefits. That is the main reason why we sold so much, is because I kept going. Because if I kept going, sales kept going. If I stopped, sales stopped. And I don't necessarily mean me only on video. It could have just been automated emails as well. Every time we sent out an email, every time we did a post, every time there was a video, sales followed. And what people... Okay, so that pre-order was a lot, 100 orders in, or 50 orders in 1 hour, that's a lot. But what people forget, and this is something people forget in everything related to success, is people think there's this one thing that will make all the other things happen. It's not. It's a combination of all the things. It's like when I grew on Instagram. By the way, in episode 52, I'll talk to you about that. I didn't grow because of one infographic I made. I didn't grow because of one really great post. I grew my Instagram, amongst others, because I made 100 really valuable posts and evaluated after 100 posts, like, did that work? Did that not work? And I had grown tens of thousands of followers, I think, by then. It's never one post, it's never one collaboration, it's never one shout out that makes you grow. It's not one client who makes you all the revenue. It's the fact that you keep going. There wasn't one live who gave me all of that revenue. There wasn't one email. There were emails who performed better. There were posts that performed better, worse, reviews better, worse. But it's the combination of everything that caused that $1 million launch. There is not a single thing that did that. Which brings me to my 6th point, though. There is kind of one thing. And this is really important when you're selling and when you're launching. By the way, the last module of the Business Freedom Elevator is about launching, way more in detail than what I'm talking about now. When you are selling, it's important to find your trigger points, to look at what are my tipping points or trigger points, what causes people to buy. And what we saw is that whenever I was on video, there were a lot of sales. So we were a little bit in a time crunch. We didn't even have a content calendar. And what we decided in the end was like, let's just put Amy on video every day. And I would go on video, I would post it to my feed. I would make stories, would repost them to my feed, like very terribly. With a filter, 15-second videos in a carousel on my feed. Very unprofessional, but it worked. And every time I was on video, that did it. Our emails, also that. So the emails and the videos did really well. That is the 80-20 rule. 20% of what you do will give you 80% of your output. And for us, that was video. I could do a live of 1 to 2 hours. That wasn't like 100% of my day, and it would just work really well. To conclude that whole 80-20 thing, what I mean is dare to look at what works. A lot of people are just like blindly following a plan because they thought they were gonna have to follow the plan, or they don't have a plan. Look, I didn't have a plan, but I looked at what I was doing. I was like, oh, this kind of stands out. When I do that, it seems to work. And I could see it in my stats that there were peaks then. So I did more of that. It's very simple. It's almost so simple that you don't want to do it. But it's one of my very best tips to look at what is that 20% that is giving you that 80%. What is actually moving the needle? For me, it's video and emails. To recap, we had 6 steps to a $1 million launch. The first step was brand recognition. The second step was transparency. Transparency in the price, in the dates, in all of the information. People like to be prepared and they can rationalize themselves into the sale like that. We had our different launch phases that were excite, educate, and close. We kept going. And we talked about the scalable product, and that means that you sometimes have to kill something you love. Number 5 was the spotlight effect. I'm doing a 1 with my hand and I'm talking about it like it's number 5. So number 5 was the spotlight effect, and how we looked at the fact that people need to hear something 8 to 10 times. So we're going to counter it with the highlight effect. We're just going to keep going when we talk about what we have to offer. And last but not least, number 6 is the 80-20. find your trigger point or tipping point, whatever it is for you, and do more of that, because it would be stupid not to. I promised you a launch list to help you out with all of the decisions and the checklist stuff you need for your next launch. So go to fastforwardamy.com/launch list to download your own launch list that you can use to prepare every launch and make it an even bigger success. Wow, an even bigger success. As always, you can find any and all information of this episode on our site. This was episode 50. But before you go, I talked about my Business Freedom Elevator. I talked about this launch, the $1 million launch. Soon, we might be opening up the doors again. And with might, I am saying we're pretty sure we're opening the doors back up in the new year. But that means that right now you can already go and register for the waitlist if you want to be one of those first people to access the pre-order at a €500 discount. If you're up for that, or you might be up for that in the future, and you're ready to increase your visibility, scale your brand, and also make tons of money and make a lot of impact, go to fastforwardamy.com/elevator or click the link in our description. Thank you for listening and or watching, and talk to you next week. Have a happy day.